Hello viewer and welcome to my presentation. I will be sharing a full explanation for one of the main propulsion methods that non-human intelligences use that are currently visiting our planet. I will be sharing a common method that the visitors use to convert electrical charge into gravitational force. This method will surprise you with how easy it is to understand and how simple it is. In order to traverse vast distances through space, many extraterrestrial civilizations have found a way to generate, amplify, and manipulate gravitational fields. They have found that the most accessible way of doing this is by taking advantage of Einstein's equivalence principle. In general relativity, we learn that when an object approaches the speed of light, that its mass increases and its perception of time slows down. By taking advantage of this effect, we are able to increase the mass of objects, and when we do, we are able to influence their interaction with gravity. As an object's mass increases, so does its gravitational influence. Many extraterrestrial civilizations have made the breakthrough discovery that this effect can be observed in objects that from all intents and purposes does not appear to be moving at all. They have found that by taking advantage of the fact that kinetic energy can also be expressed as vibration, that they can affect the mass of tiny quanta of matter by simply shaking it at extremely high frequencies and at high amplitudes. At extremely high frequencies and amplitudes, the equivalence principle applies just as it does for an object moving linearly through space. As the object shakes, its mass also oscillates, creating a change in its interaction with gravity. This interaction generates a tiny wave through the metric of space-time. This is called a gravity wave. At these scales, and at the frequencies that are achievable, these gravity waves are so small and weak that they cannot be detected. Fortunately, if we know that the wave exists, we don't need to be able to detect it to amplify it. The most obvious way of doing this is simply to duplicate the source of the waves to multiply the force generated. By multiplying the source of our gravity waves, we are able to amplify our wave force by creating a coherent interference pattern. When we do this, waves that meet at their apex reinforce one another into a combined wave force, whereas waves that collide at their lowest point, or directly oppose one another, cancel each other out. By carefully tuning the frequency of our waves, the position of the sources of our waves, and by synchronizing their oscillations, we are able to amplify their total effect into a measurable and effective gravity wave force. It is fortunate that we are working at small scales, because the smaller the quanta of matter, the less energy that is required to reach higher rates of vibration. If we use atoms as our gravity wave producers, we can multiply their effect many times over, simply by using larger units of matter. A single piece of matter with a diameter of 1 meter and a depth of 1 centimeter would potentially contain several quintillion atoms. However, in order to amplify our wave force, we must find a way to make our atoms oscillate in lockstep, and from an engineering point of view, this is very hard. The next thing that we have to do is choose how we are going to excite our atoms, to motivate them into oscillating in the first place. Heat works well, but if we want to be able to finely control and synchronize our oscillations, then we are going to have to use large electrical charges. The next step is to pick a suitable material that we are going to apply our static electrical charge to. We want the component atoms to be able to move freely along one axis if we want to oscillate them at the highest possible amplitudes. Both magnesium and aluminium have a suitable lattice structure to give our atoms plenty of room to move along a vertical axis. We will use aluminium this time as it is the most common metal on Earth. In order to produce useful gravity waves, we want our atoms to oscillate in synchronization and also to move in the same direction. In order to facilitate this kind of motion, we will apply a large static charge to our material. By stacking thin aluminium plates, with an insulator or dielectric between each plate, we will be able to construct a large capacitor. Such a device is able to hold a large static charge, and we will be able to motivate the atoms within the positively charged plates while also controlling their oscillations along a single axis. The proximity of the large negatively charged plate will motivate the atoms within the positively charged plate to move towards the powerful negative electrical charge, causing the positively charged ions to move along a vertical axis. If our molecular lattice structure is precise enough, and if we are able to apply a large but finely controlled electrical charge, we are able to produce a measurable gravity wave force, generated by the rapid vibrations of the constituent atoms within the positively charged plate. If we now shape our capacitor into a parabolic bowl shape, we will be able to focus the gravity waves on the concave side of the device to a single focal point. By focusing the gravity waves below our device, we are able to exert direct pressure onto the fabric of space. This creates an asymmetrical gravitational field, something that does not normally exist in nature. The effect of this type of field is that the craft moves opposite to the direction of the gravitational field. This seems counterintuitive, but the craft itself cannot get closer to the field, as it is locked at the focal point of the concave surface of the device. The field itself moves vertically because of the pressure it exerts onto the fabric of space-time. At 1 g of force produced, the craft would become weightless on the Earth's surface. If the craft produced 2 g's of force, the craft would accelerate vertically with an acceleration rate that would normally produce 1 g of force. The downside is that the occupants of the craft would experience twice the gravitational force that you would experience on the Earth's surface. One solution to this problem is by simply stacking gravity amplifiers on top of one another. The smaller inner dome produces a constant field with 1 g of force. The larger outer dome is then free to produce much stronger fields that would normally generate forces that would be lethal to any potential passengers or pilots. Whenever the craft engages in high acceleration maneuvers, all passengers and pilots simply move to the inner area of the vehicle, into the stable 1 g environment. The inner amplifier is able to maintain the weaker field, because another perk of these devices is that they also produce a kind of low-range repulsive field from their convex surfaces. This is because the amplifier produces an equal amount of gravity waves along the convex surface, but the shape of this surface causes the waves to disperse rather than focus. This creates a short-ranged effect, but a useful one nevertheless. In combination, the two surfaces of the gravity amplifier create an envelope of stable gravity that is immune from the effects of g-force generated from the motion or acceleration of the vehicle. Another benefit of the short-ranged repulsive field is that it also generates an area of low air pressure around the vehicle. This allows it to move much easier through dense atmospheres and even allows for the transition between a gaseous medium to a liquid one, with minimal impact. It also prevents these types of vehicles from producing sonic booms and convection trails. To facilitate trans-medium capabilities, different designs and configurations of amplifiers can be considered. A traditional disc-shaped craft is only able to utilize the full force of its thrust when it is moving vertically. The repulsive field makes this a possibility in a gaseous medium despite its poor aerodynamic shape. In a liquid medium, a smaller cross-section may be required for high-performance maneuvering in a liquid environment. You now have a basic understanding of the mechanisms of gravity amplification vehicles. You will see that contrary to previous conclusions, that these craft do not defy physics, but rather they utilize it in some rather elegant and novel ways. It is my hope that this video will kickstart a new and exciting scientific pathway that will greatly benefit humanity as a whole. It is the first of a series of videos that will also explore some of the more specialist vehicular equipment that non-humans use, as well as providing new explanations for some of the more unusual aspects of UAP propulsion. I hope that you enjoyed my video and I thank you for your time.